Okay, I'm going to share the stream.
Are they challenging us?
Oh, wait, I need to name it.
Landry Shamet is on the Knicks. That's wild.
He's still playing basketball?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
they called it on the floor. They didn't call a shooting foul. Oh, 5 seconds. Uh-oh. Timeout.
Let me do stream manager real quick. So, let me change the name. What are we going to call this name for it? What's the name of the episode?
Episode 3. What's next? Talking about what's possibly next. The storylines for all these teams.
How about NFL storylines for this?
So what's next? NFL storylines.
I'm just naming it on like the Twitch thing, so it doesn't actually like matter really yet. Okay, done. Share the thing, copy, and then we can go here, post that, link, paste, done.
You want to make an appearance on the podcast? Do you want to make an appearance on the podcast?
Okay, and then we'll go back to here. Uploading. Add mentions. Me, you. Add. And then go repost it. Add a story. Okay. Alright. I am ready when you are. That's a dog.
That is indeed a dog. Ben, can you get down? I don't think I can do the intro with you in my lap because you're not looking.
No, because I can't hear you.
If you're looking at the camera. If you're looking at the camera, we'd be fine, Bane, but you're not looking at the camera, so. There. What's he gonna say? Huh? What's he gonna say?
Ew.
Alright, go on, girl. Go on, girl.
Go on now, get. We got some football to talk about. Burning daylight.
I'm going to the bed. Alright, I'm ready.
Alright, well, we're streaming. So we got 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the TD Touchdown Podcast with Tony and Dak. I'm Dakota Atwater Dak. That's Tony, or Ant as I like to call him. Welcome to episode 3, where we're going to talk about all 32 teams and the storylines surrounding those teams. And then we're going to go into our favorite storyline and go a little bit in depth of one team per division. As we are almost 2 weeks post NFL draft, the first week we talked about the mock drafts. The second week we talked about draft grades of what actually happened in the NFL draft. And now we're going to talk about what's next. You know, teams are filling out the rosters. Players are getting moved. We're figuring out where the last few free agents need to go. And there's some storylines of quarterbacks.
A lot.
Need to figure out what's going on with the quarterbacks. So today, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about quarterbacks because a lot of these storylines we're going to talk about are
Quarterbacks.
the generals on the football field, that puts the ball most of the time in the end zone. So without further ado, we're going to talk about each storyline. I'll kind of give you the parameters for it.
Mm-hmm.
Ant's going to start here, and he's going to go through a division. He's going to name all 4 teams, and he's going to say the storyline for each team. And then after those 4 teams, he's going to go into his favorite team that he wants to talk about. And then after that, I'll get to ask one question per division about the topic he's talking about. So, Ant, I believe you start with the AFC North. And for fans out there, the AFC North is the Bengals, Ravens,
hold on. I get
Steelers.
there.
Okay.
I get there. I got the notes.
Right.
I got notes.
Okay.
So
All right. Just making sure I was going to give the teams. But
yeah, I got
Ant,
it. I got it.
hit us.
So we're starting with the AFC North, as he said. Now, before we get into it entirely, I didn't totally read the show notes for what he had planned, so this is the only team that didn't follow his parameters. I was diving deep and trying to come up with a overall storyline for the AFC North, right? And with that, so like Dak mentioned, we got the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns, right? So with that, I came up with the overarching storyline of head coaches, right? Usually it's like quarterbacks, it's players. No. AFC North, we've got the head coaches as the main story going into this next season, in my eyes, right? So the head coaches we have Zach Taylor for the Bengals, Mike Tomlin for the Steelers, Kevin Stefanski for the Browns, and John Harbaugh for the Ravens. So with 3 of those 4 head coaches, I think 3 of them could be on the hot seat by the end of this season. Now, hot seat, 3 of them. Mike Tomlin? Yeah, we're going to get there. So, first, we got Zach Taylor. So, since 2020, I've got stats. Since 2020, the Bengals have been 4-11, 10-7, 12-4, 9-8, 9-8. So, he started being a head coach in 2020. That's why that matters. They've had an impossible hurdle with their defense the last 2 seasons. As you guys know, the Bengals offense has been on a tear since Joe Burrow got there, really. And then the defense has been a crapshoot since he's been there as well. Ranking 25th in points and yards last year and 21st in points and 31st in yards the year before. Dog water, trash. Not going to help win anything for Joe Burrow. Then the offense has been the total opposite. Like I mentioned, top 10 in scoring since Burrow got in the league. In my opinion, if Taylor can't rally the defense, he could see the door at the end of the season. I don't think that's too crazy, but we'll keep going. So Kevin Stefanski, known as a good offensive coordinator, offensive coach, but the offense has sucked the last 2 years, and it's no better this year in my opinion. Too many quarterback transactions this offseason, as we mentioned last podcast. If you haven't watched that one, watch that one. Then come back to this one.
It's a must. It's a must.
We got Joe Flacco.
Unless you're a Browns fan.
We have, so just this year's offseason transactions, we've got Joe Flacco. I put George Pickens, but that's supposed to say Pickett. We got Kenny Pickett traded for, Joe Flacco signed, Dylan Gabriel's drafted, and Shadur Sanders drafted. Bad wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, not bad, but he's only been good with Jameis Winston. Cedric Tillman, mid, and then Deontay Johnson, who could very well be the next AB without the skill and ability. And then we have old and regressing offensive line, with 4 of the projected starters being over 30 years old by the start of the season, and the other one started 8 games last season, so that doesn't fare well for whoever is starting at the Browns quarterback position. And then the running back position is the only bright spot for their offensive roster, and Dylan Sampson and Quinshawn Judkins, but who knows what they're going to be able to do behind an old and regressing offensive line. So Kevin Stefanski, all in all, could get the short end of the stick and get the boot because of a lack of team-building ability stemming from the owner's decision to sign Deshaun Watson to a massive deal after he was out of football for 2 years. If you guys didn't know, he makes a lot of money to do nothing and suck at football. Nothing good, I should say. He does nothing good. And then we've got Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Steelers for basically my entire life, like probably since I was 10. So he's been making some questionable decisions and moves at the quarterback position. Went out with Kenny Pickett from 2022 to 2023 as the starter. And then last season, he signed both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Now, the questionable moves start there with the quarterback spot, right? He benched Fields after going 4-2. Not stellar stats, but still efficient. And then he brought in Russell Wilson because he promised he was going to be his guy, and then he got hurt in the offseason, what have you, whatever. But then Russell Wilson dropped the last 4 games of the season, going 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and almost 700 yards in those 4 games, and lost 2 of the divisional games. They ended up being 2 games behind the Ravens, so they could have made the playoffs. Did they? No, they made the playoffs. They could have won their division had they not dropped those so many games. And then they're going into this season. Right now, their rostered quarterbacks are Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. And maybe Aaron Rodgers. How much is that really going to help you? Remains to be seen. There's a whole lot of drama going on there. You got George Pickens and DK Metcalf, two of the highest diva-esque receivers.
Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, I know this isn't my question, or we're kind of going off topic here, and I know we're trying to stay on topic here.
Mm-hmm.
But I was watching the Pat McAfee show today, and we're talking of divas. Aaron Rodgers has a ring on his left hand on his ring finger.
He's married?
Like one of those.
He's married?
We would think we would know that, it would come out because of how much of a diva he is. I don't know what it
was
is,
a plant
but
to get us to talk about it like we're doing right now.
Like, I don't know, but yeah, that's keep going.
So
Sorry,
outside of Mike Tomlin's questionable quarterback decisions over the last couple seasons, he's had a lot of question marks, and this could be the first season he goes below 500, like in his entire tenure as a Steelers head coach. But if you ask me, it's a very lame stat because he hasn't had playoff success since 2016. You know who the big three of 2016 was? Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown.
I miss those days, man. I miss those days.
Back
those
when Antonio
Bumblebee
Brown
jerseys.
wasn't a Looney Tune, Le'Veon Bell wasn't sitting out, and Ben Roethlisberger wasn't making questionable decisions.
Le'Veon Bell's boxing now, so
is he?
He's got something to do in his life.
Well, there you go. At least he's not
a pro boxer.
At least he's not going absolutely bonkers on Twitter. So then we have the last coach, John Harbaugh, where he's
not going nowhere.
He just has to take the next step. He just has to take the next step. Ravens have been on the cusp of the Super Bowl the last two seasons, losing to the Bills last year in the divisional round, and then losing to the Chiefs in the conference the year before that. They have an influx of talent on the defense with Malachi Starks and Mike Green, shoring up both their secondary and defensive line a little bit more, adding some more youth and ability, obviously. Excuse me. Their only real gap or question mark is in their cornerback room, but it's John Harbaugh, and they always seem to figure it out. And then you also have that like a stupid high-scoring offense in the Ravens with Lamar Jackson as well. So they just need to take their next step and finish their story, throwing in a WWE reference with Cody Rhodes. So just finish your story and get Lamar Jackson a ring, so the best running back in the league can get himself a ring. And Derrick Henry, he deserves one. The two best running backs in the league.
Derrick Henry does indeed deserve one. My question to you is more Steelers related, because I know we've been talking a little bit more Steelers than anything here. I actually have a funny. No, I'll go two. All right, this is the only time I'll go two. The Browns are probably going to sign Justin Tucker. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Actually?
No, it's a joke.
Oh, it's a joke because they make bad decisions. I get it.
He also just got anyways, my question is, when does Will Howard start for the Steelers, and how far can he take them? It seems like the Steelers can go 500 with any quarterback out, and that's playing. I mean, I feel like they went 500 with Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph's probably going to be starter for the first however many weeks. How long till you think Will Howard gets the start? It kind of reminds me of the Baker Mayfield kind of, you don't starting him, you're not playing him, and then boom, he's your guy.
Yeah.
Granted, Will Howard was not a first-round pick, but he did just win a national title.
Yeah. So I would be lying if I said I know a whole lot about Will Howard, but I did watch John Gruden's video, like the QB room thing on him. First of all, John Gruden can sell me on anything after that video, because I was like, oh yeah, pound on the table, draft Will Howard in the first. I'm not a lunatic, but that was John Gruden's a crackhead and knows how to sell you on something. But in all honesty, Kenny Pickett was a starter, and he was over 500 with Kenny Pickett, who is a subpar athlete and has baby hands. I think Will Howard,
he has a whole college football rule named after him. Okay, he did something.
That doesn't matter. Will Howard, plus athlete, I would say, better vision, a winning mentality. I would say he starts by week 5, he gives them a better opportunity than Mason Rudolph. I'm honestly surprised he's still on a roster. I mean, I think they'll finish third in the division no matter what. If the Bengals can get themselves together.
If the Bengals can get their defense going, I think the Bengals could easily win the division. I think the Ravens go a little bit over 500. I'm not going to give an exact win. I'm going to save that for the next week's episode of exact win numbers. But I do like Will Howard a lot. I also like Kyle McCord.
I also think that their receiving core could be a big boost for Will Howard or whoever plays quarterback because they got DK Metcalf now too. Not that he's going to be like he's like everybody's Madden crush because like he's 6'4" and he's fast and like he's got to be good in Madden, but like in real life his route tree is kind of questionable. So it really just depends. I don't watch enough Steelers football games to tell you the truth, and I think I'm okay with that. But it really comes down to what their defense can do because that's who carries their team all the time. So it really just depends on how far the defense can carry them. Yeah, if TJ Watt can stay healthy. They did bring in, wasn't it Derek Harmon? Didn't they draft Derek Harmon? Yeah. So they have a nasty defensive line per usual, front seven in general. So I think it really just comes down to how far their defense can carry them and how well the quarterback can take care of the ball. And if I'm not mistaken, Will Howard takes pretty darn care of the ball.
Yeah, I don't.
But who knows with the NFL?
Off the top of my head.
I don't either. But
speaking of people that can't take care of the ball, the teams in the AFC South. Trevor Lawrence, he's he could take care of the ball a little bit if he can stay healthy. C.J. Stroud, I don't know. AR. He takes care of the ball. He just doesn't complete passes. So I guess that's taking care of the ball. And then Will Levis doesn't take care of the ball.
Cam Ward, not Will Levis.
Cam Ward is there. So I know. I'm saying from last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he did not take care of the ball at all.
My storylines so how this is actually going to work here. Yeah. My storylines for each team are the Colts. Your offense is loaded. Can AR take this team to where everyone expects AR can take this team?
He's got some high standards.
Self-explanatory. Daniel Jones could be the starting quarterback. Who knows? It's still up for competition. The Texans, can you protect your franchise piece? And is your franchise piece your actual franchise piece in C.J. Stroud? The Jags, we're still young. So do we have something to prove, or are we just living free because we're so young we have nothing to prove? And then the Titans, can Cam Ward lead us to a 500 record, or are we still in a rebuild? Those are my 4 storylines. But what I want to talk about is the Jaguars, because 2 years ago.
Before you get to that, I looked up the stats for these quarterbacks. At least the ones that were in the NFL last year. So C.J. Stroud, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions.
Okay.
So Trevor Lawrence was piss poor last year. 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And then Anthony Richardson, 8 touchdowns.
He didn't play.
Yeah, he played 10 games. 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So, yeah, none of them take very good care of the ball. Now, a lot of those interception stats could be inflated. I hate the way interceptions are calculated. If it goes off the receiver's hands, it's not on the quarterback. But I'll let you get into the Jags.
So the Jags, 2 years ago, the Jaguars were in the AFC division round, to which they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl, and they only lost by 7 points. If you can remember, the Jags came back from I believe it was the Chargers. They were down like 21 to nothing, ended up winning that game 31-30. The Jags have a good, solid team. They keep getting younger and younger and younger. Trevor Lawrence is only getting better. I still like the comparison to Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning struggled his first few years in the NFL. Had to get him on offensive line around him. The offensive line is improving for the Jags. But last year, the Jags were the 5th youngest team in the NFL in the NFL to start the season. I think average age was like 25 years old. You bring in some really talented guys in the draft, um, topped by Travis Hunter, who I think is going to help their defense a lot. And like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, he's going to help some wide receiver packages.
Mm-hmm.
That he's also getting to line up against and with Brian Thomas, who I think is one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL right now,
Mm-hmm.
and easily could be a top 10 receiver in the NFL with a healthy Trevor Lawrence. And then your running backs, you have Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, who Travis Etienne I don't think can stay healthy. I think he's playing injured a lot, and we're not seeing the full Travis Etienne that we've seen in college,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't help. But I think the thing that's pushing the Jags back right now is the $113 million I believe that they're giving Christian Kirk.
Mm.
Um,
That's a lot of money.
so you figure that out. I think the Jags are one of the most promising teams in the NFL this year, and a team that can make the biggest jump from I believe 3 to 4 wins last year, and I think they can get to 8 or 9, and we could possibly see them in the playoffs this year, in the wild card round. And it wouldn't surprise me if they did some damage in the playoffs, because they don't really have anything to prove. They're just out there balling out,
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing freely. So that's something that I'm very very I like, I
Yeah.
guess, is what I can say.
Yeah, I would say so. Before I get to my question, um, I think Liam Cohen from the Buccaneers is also going to be a really really big help. He was the offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers last year, and you saw how Baker Mayfield tore it up. And I think Trevor Lawrence is a better athlete and might have a better arm. I don't know for certain, but I remember Baker
Trevor's
Mayfield.
arm in college is pretty darn good.
Yeah, he's just
He
had some
can
time in
sling
the
it.
league, so who knows how that is now.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but I think my big question is what happens to Trevor Lawrence if he has another dud of a season? Like, do we think he's getting shipped out? Because he just got extended like last season or two ago. So,
I think it's 2 years, 2 years. I think you give him this year to really figure out the team and the O coordinate or and the staff, because obviously the
yep,
staff's not going anywhere the first year.
yeah. Well, unless you're the
And
Raiders.
then and then if you can't figure it out this year, you give him next year and say, hey, this is your second year with the staff.
It's time for you to check
And
in.
I think then he's got less guaranteed money
Mm-hmm.
at that point.
Yeah,
And then you're talking about maybe drafting a quarterback in 2 years.
yeah.
And or you're maybe bringing a guy in that's got something to prove.
Some competition. Take the Colts route
Yeah,
because they're
yeah.
brain dead
But
morons. But
I I'm very high on Trevor Lawrence. I think he is easily a top 10 quarterback in the league when healthy. Um, and in the right the scheme. And I think he's worth the money he's getting paid, because he is a top 10 quarterback in the league. And we're going to get to top 10 or paid top 10 quarterbacks. We're going to get to top 10 paid quarterbacks here in a second, when we get to the NFC. And we're going to look into those top 10 quarterbacks and what they're doing.
yeah,
But
before we get there, we got the AFC West. That's my
yeah,
cup of tea. That's my stomping grounds. So the AFC West, obviously, if you've watched any of these episodes, you know I'm a Raiders fan. You might think I'm a little unbiased or a little biased. Definitely not unbiased, but so we've got the Raiders, we've got the Chiefs, we've got the Chargers, we've got the Broncos. So now, formatted correctly, the storylines heading into the season. The Chargers, can they get over the hump? The Broncos, will Bo Nix continue to improve, or was last year a fluke? Do the Chiefs hit a wall or continue to dominate after having a rocky Super Bowl and more age? And the Raiders, do the Raiders matter yet? Like that's the Raiders storyline.
I like it. I like it. I like
And that's actually going to be the focus because I know the most about the Raiders and I care the most about the Raiders, to be honest. So the focus is the Raiders and do they matter yet? So before we get to like the deep part of it, I'm going to ask you a question actually. What are two things a playoff team typically has? Like, what's a running theme of offensive of playoff teams?
You just said the word. You just said the word right there, running. If you can run the ball and control the line of scrimmage, and you can open up the play action pass. The play action pass is huge, and in the playoffs, because if you can keep defenses honest and down, in the box and down on the line of scrimmage, it's just going to open up to those big deep balls that break defenses' backs. And you see it in the Super Bowl. Those deep balls hurt teams because the run game is so efficient. I mean, I look at the teams that have had success in the NFL the past few years, and the teams that can run the football. I mean, the Lions, they can run the football. They have Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. The Niners, they can run the football. Well, granted, last year they struggled a little bit. The Packers, they were playing pretty darn good at the beginning of the year because they could run the football. The Vikings, they were able to run the football at the beginning of the year. Aaron Jones was eating. He was eating up in the beginning of the year. I think that's something you have to do, but you also have to be able to stop the run because you have to control the game. If you can't control the game in the NFL, teams are just going to fly right by you because that's what you got to do. Yes, throwing the ball is fun and cool, but look at Josh Allen. Look at the Bills. They haven't been able to get over the hump because they're not being able to stop the run or run the ball effectively. They can run the ball. James Cook, he had a pretty good year this year, but you can't do it. You got to do it in the playoffs. And I think that's two things that a playoff team must need. And I know exactly where you're going with this, with what you're about to say about the Raiders.
I think you missed it. I mean, those are good points. That's just not where I was going with it. I was going with a solid head coach and a starting quarterback, a bona fide starting quarterback. Because
I went too in depth.
Yeah, you went a little deep. Because when you look at the last couple teams that won the Super Bowl, you have the Eagles, who have Jalen Hurts, and I'm blanking on his coach. What's his name? Where am I blanking?
Yeah, you're making me.
Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni.
He's an Italian.
Then you got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And then before that, before that was like Tom Brady and Bruce Arians.
And both of those teams could stop the run and run the ball.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the Chiefs, but yes.
Isaiah Pacheco had a good game against the Niners.
Oh, well, that's not much. But why did the Niners win or lose? Because they can't stop the run. So another point for you.
Clock management too.
So what happened the last time the Raiders had a solid head coach and a starting quarterback? They went to the playoffs in 2021. John Gruden. that was the disaster season. That was the season John Gruden got the boot because of those emails, and Henry Ruggs did what he did. So the last time the Raiders had a head coach that was competent, because whether you like it or not, John Gruden's competent. He just has a really bad draft and questionable play calls on occasion. And then Derek Carr, whether you like it or not, Derek Carr was a monster in 2021.
He was in the running for MVP, correct?
That was 2016. And then he broke his leg because the Colts are stupid. So now we have Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, who have a history together. And now that they're on the Raiders and not the Seahawks, I would argue that the Raiders have a better roster than the Seahawks, at least offensively. Because I would say Genti is going to be better than Kenneth Walker. I would say the Raiders' O-line is better. They allowed less sacks with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Two players, especially, one at least, who holds onto the ball way too long. And then better coaching staff around them, with Chip Kelly and Patrick Graham being one of the most slept-on defensive coordinators in the league. And I would say the biggest difference is the division is more competitive. Whether you like it or not, the Cardinals have been wishy-washy the last couple of years. And then the Rams are competent. The 49ers had a crap of a season. And then the Seahawks they're like the Steelers of the NFC. It feels like they go around 500 every year, but they don't really make a splash.
That's fair.
So
I can agree with that.
My question going into this season for the Raiders is, I believe they're the most improved team in the division, but will it be enough to take a step forward in a very competitive division is what I'll be watching for this upcoming season. Did they improve enough? Bringing in all their receivers, all their defensive line trenches and a couple of defensive backs, is that enough to get them at least third in the division? And personally, I think it is, but we'll get through there.
So my question is to you. I know you kind of answered a question that I did just have about if you think they could get over that hump. But I guess I'll throw two. What team do they get over the hump?
Like who do they beat? The Broncos.
Who do they beat? Broncos?
Yeah, the
Okay.
Broncos hadn't beaten the Raiders since like 2016 until last year.
And then my question is, now that the Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll rivalry has started over again, how are these games going to pan out from players' perspectives? Do you think players take the rivalry that they've always had against each other and back their coaches, or do you think it's just those two coaches have it, but we don't have it against the other team?
Well, here's the thing about the AFC West. For those of you that aren't following a team in the AFC West, every team in this division hates each other, like with a passion. Like it's not just, oh, we hate the Chiefs, or oh, we hate the Chargers, or it's every team hates each other, right? And having a feud between coaches is only going to fuel that fire. Max Crosby already talks probably the most smack out of any defensive player in the league, and I feel like just a head coach feud is going to just add fuel to the fire, and I'm so excited to see how it goes. And if you didn't know, Raiders fans are absolute fiends. Like, they are menaces to society, and I can only imagine how much more it's going to go if once Pete Carroll gets ahead of Jim Harbaugh, because I bet you it happens at least once this year. Because if I had it my way, and I'm not going to like go out and be crazy, but a hot take of mine is the Raiders finish second in their division this year.
Ooh.
So, to answer that question, I think that it's only going to add fuel to the fire because these teams already hate each other.
I like it. Our next division is the AFC East. And my four storylines for each team are Patriots, year 2 struggles for Drake May, ? Jets, can Justin Fields lead them to what Rodgers was supposed to? Dolphins, how long until Zach Wilson? Bills, what are we doing to get over the hump? And it was a toss-up for me between the Bills and the Dolphins because I really wanted to talk about what are the Bills doing. But I think it's very important that we have to talk about the Dolphins because Tua Tagovailoa can't stay healthy. He's only had one complete season since being drafted, and I believe that was 2023. He can't stay healthy. He's getting injured. He's got so many concussions and thought about retirement last season.
Well, they wanted him to think about
how long until we see Zach Wilson? And I'm thinking week 6. The only problem is I think Quinn Ewers is also chomping at the bit that he could possibly start some games too. Because if Zach Wilson struggles, Quinn Ewers is getting QB1 reps. And I've heard from a few people, I've read a few things. The only reason Quinn Ewers dropped in the draft was because his name was so high that teams were scared to draft him, and his fan base and everybody is expecting him to get quarterback 1 reps. Because you're not seeing a team like the Lions. Well, actually, I could see a team like the Lions drafting Ewers if Jared Goff continues to struggle.
It's a little past that, though.
Late years.
They lost that opportunity.
But you're not seeing a team like the Chiefs. You're not seeing a team with quarterback that they're
believe in.
Stuck with franchise quarterbacks drafting Quinn Ewers because Quinn Ewers could possibly be a starting quarterback in the league is what reports are saying, and he might be able to get 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm a full believer in Zach Wilson. I have been for a few years just because of the simple fact that look at the Jets players that have went elsewhere and have succeeded after getting out of there. Geno Smith succeeded. He's one of the, since leaving the Jets, he's probably has a really good winning percentage. You got Sam Darnold, who bounced around a little bit and, had a really good year with the Vikings last year. Needless to say, he did struggle in the playoffs. But he went from seeing ghosts to being quarterback 1 somewhere. And now he's on the Seahawks. He's making a bunch of money. I think
Shouldn't be, but he is.
Zach Wilson is the next dude that, you go somewhere else. You sit for a year behind a guy. He did sit behind a rookie. I get it, but he was with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton had Drew Brees, and Drew Brees is probably one of the smartest quarterbacks to ever play the game. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks to ever play the game. So, you're learning, you're growing. You go to a team like Mike McDaniel, who is probably one of the most offensive guru guys in the league. He's came from the Shanahan tree, I believe, that was with the Redskins, now the Commanders.
Yeah, he was in
but
that
it was
little
Redskins there
Yeah,
with LaFleur or Matt LaFleur.
with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of head coaches. So you're going to a guy like that who is very smart, and a guy that I think is getting tired of Tua. So you could see Zach Wilson come in here. He can sling it. He can move. Zach Wilson is very underrated when it comes to running the football. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Luck when it comes to running the football. He's a bigger guy. He's not scared to spin. Take a hit. I think Zach Wilson could potentially lead this team to a wild card with how fluctuated the AFC division is as a whole. Because say the Steelers have a down year, boom, that's another team that's not going to the wild card. The Bengals can't figure it out on defense, boom, they're going down. So now you have the Ravens. The Browns aren't making the playoffs. There's only one team probably making it from the AFC South, and that's whoever wins the division, unless the Jaguars can get it going. If the Jaguars get it going, okay, that's a team that takes a wild card. There's still other 2 wild card spots out there, and 3 teams could possibly take it from the AFC West because, there's good teams out there. But the Bills, they're going to take the AFC East, most likely. I don't think anyone's going to challenge that because the Patriots, let's be honest, they still rebuilding. They still have to rebuild.
I'm interested to see what Mike Vrabel does with them, though.
Yes, I am very intrigued, but I think 2 years and they'll be back. And then you got the Bills, you got the Dolphins, you got Patriots, and then you got the Jets. The Jets will be the Jets. It's like the Browns will always be the Browns. I don't new system. Justin Fields, I don't think it's gonna be Justin Fields' fault because I'm a true believer in Justin Fields ever since he went 8-9 for the Bears, and we're giving up on a guy that's had a new offensive coordinator and coach almost every single year. He went 4-2 with the Steelers, was playing his butt off, winning games. They gave up on him. I think he's quarterback 1. He's gonna have some rust coming off. Dolphins could be a playoff team, and if Tua can't stay healthy, why not Zach Wilson? Why not make your name next year quarterback 1 for another team that's in need of a quarterback? And that's a hot take. I get it, but Zach Wilson could be quarterback 1 for the Dolphins.
So I'm hearing you on the Zach Wilson quarterback of the Dolphins, right? I'm hearing you on that.
Yeah.
I think where you might be missing me is the whole Dolphins to the playoffs thing. Because you also got to think, who do they have as weapons, for one, offensive line, and their defense. So while Zach Wilson may prove himself a little bit, are you sure that the rest of the roster is not going to be sandbagging on the rest of that? Because outside of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who seems to be injured and having a whole lot of problems.
They have Devin Achane,
however that you say his name. Yeah. But he got hurt last year too. He was in and out.
I think they have weapons. Now the offensive line could be a struggle here and there.
Especially with his happy feet.
We've seen teams that have not very good offensive lines and still make the playoffs because of how bad the AFC tends to be sometimes. And their defense, Jalen Ramsey's probably going to get traded.
I guess their defense was top 10 last year, but why did I think they were so bad? Like, they had a top 10 defense in points and yards.
It's because Tua throwing pick sixes. Yeah. You're giving up points from the offense, right? I believe, how many pick sixes did Tua throw last year?
I don't know if I can find that stat well.
4 or 5.
I can tell you he threw 7 picks last year.
Yeah. So, and I think some of them were pick sixes. But your turnovers, how many turnovers did the Dolphins have last year? I believe the defense wasn't put in a great position last year because Tua was out however many games.
Yeah.
And the third string quarterback was getting reps. I believe, was it Chad Pennington? Was that his name?
Oh,
no.
I don't know.
No. He's a white guy.
It's not very helpful.
Oh my goodness, that's not very helpful. Quarterbacks for Dolphins
Hold on.
last season.
We know ball, but we don't know everything.
Skylar Thompson.
They also had Tyler Huntley. Don't forget about him.
Yeah. Skylar Thompson was the guy.
Well, Tyler
that
Huntley
stepped in when
started.
Tua was out.
Tyler Huntley came in. He started 5 games. Skylar Thompson only started 1.
Yeah.
So Skylar Thompson threw 829 yards, threw for 3 touchdowns, had 3 interceptions, and was sacked 15 times in 5 games. So yeah, their offensive line is a problem.
But hot take: Dolphins can make the playoffs because the AFC is not that good. But you know what is good? The NFC. NFC is the superior division.
Superior conference. And I disagree.
Yeah,
Because how many times has the NFC won the Super Bowl in the last 5 years?
Sorry, we don't have
Maybe twice?
We don't have the Chiefs.
No.
All right.
You don't. But
we have
now
the Buccaneers.
we're going to get to the worst.
We have the Eagles.
We're
It's
gonna get
3-2. That's not even that big of a draw.
We're
And
going
your
to get
team
to
that won
the
it
worst
was
division
the Chiefs.
in the NFC. Respectfully, the NFC South. We got the Saints, the Buccaneers, the Panthers, and the Falcons, right? The storylines coming into the season. What happens with Derek Carr? I had to give my boy some love. He's got a shoulder surgery possibility. He has off-the-field personal stuff going on. A new head coach. Whole bunch of stuff with the Saints going on. Can the Buccaneers stay healthy? Whether that be their offensive receivers, whether that be their offensive line, whether that be their secondary, can they stay healthy? Does Bryce Young prove he has it? He started to light himself on fire a little bit towards the end of the season, but is that fire going to continue, or is it going to flat out die? They got some more weapons with Tenero McMillan, and Chuba Hubbard gets another season. Hopefully, why do I always forget his name? Jonathan Brooks. Hopefully he comes into the season healthy, but we'll see. And then the one I'll be focusing on is, will Mike Penix be Atlanta's future? So Michael Penix has an awesome team around him. He's got Drake London,
The offense is loaded.
Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, a good offensive line. Now the defense is the question mark. At least the defensive
They addressed
line.
it. They did address it.
But they
in
did
the
address it,
draft.
yeah. Now it just depends on how they perform. But can Michael Penix excel, right? So we saw him last season throw for 775 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Now, the problem that he had the most last season when he played was his accuracy. He hit 55% of his throws in the last 2 games. That's really bad. That's not good at all.
Unless you're a Colts fan, you'll take that.
Yeah, unless you're a Colts fan. Now, he has a full offseason under his belt with everybody expecting to be a starter. All these things are on the up and up and could give him an opportunity to excel. And he has the full confidence of his coaching staff, where Kirk Cousins didn't have that. So my question going into this season is, in a division with a lot of questions, will Michael Penix bring the Falcons back to glory? That's what I will be keeping an eye on for this offseason.
So, you ready for my question for you?
Mm-hmm.
Where does Kirk Cousins go? I don't think he's on that roster very much longer.
So part of me wants to say the Browns, because what would be funny.
I mean, why not the Browns?
Yeah, why not add a 6th in there? You know, have a plus role model in that locker room, behind a grumpy old Joe Flacco, a questionable character in Deshaun Watson. Who else? Kenny Pickett. I don't think Kenny Pickett has any problems. I mean, he was on the Steelers, so who knows? And then
Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders.
yeah, and then you got Shadur. But truthfully, where could Kirk Cousins go?
Why not? Why not the Saints?
Why not the Saints? Because they just drafted Tyler Shuck. He's gonna start if Derek Carr goes down, or Derek Carr doesn't start, or they ship him out. I'm more worried about Derek Carr where he goes, because I think he could start on a team still. I've been a Derek Carr
goes to the
believer
Vikings
forever.
Derek Carr goes to the Vikings.
Don't joke with me.
And
Lights it up. Oh, that would be a dream.
What if JJ is struggling and they need a quarterback and Derek Carr goes first 4 weeks is healthy and then they're like, wow, we're just gonna fully move on, and he ends up with the Vikings week 5, and somehow Kirk Cousins ends up with the Saints, and we got a full quarterback carousel.
That would be crazy. I don't think that happens because they wouldn't trade interdivision. Like I mentioned, the AFC West hates each other. The Falcons and the Saints hate each other because as a Derek Carr fan,
But if the price is right,
I pay some attention to the Saints subreddit, and there was somebody in New Orleans who had the 28-3 scoreboard flag over their balcony. So
that rivalry is hot oil. But I honestly think Kirk Cousins, he could go to the Steelers.
Kirk
Cousins
didn't
go to the
even
Steelers.
play for the Falcons though. I mean, he played 3-4 games for him, and then it was Penix's job.
He played enough games. He just wasn't good. But I think he could go to the Steelers once Aaron Rodgers gets tired of toying with everybody's emotions and decides he's going to retire. Why not?
He'll sit out a year and then see what the quarterback market is next year.
Yeah, he doesn't want to play for the Steelers. But Kirk Cousins played 14 games, so yeah, he played a lot. He played a lot.
Okay.
So yeah, that'll be the answer to that question. There's a spider on my wall. It's dead now.
Teams.
That's a bug, not a spider, but it's
We're
dead.
gonna move to the NFC North, who I believe is one of the best divisions in football. Last year I believe it was. You had 2 undefeated teams for a while, and the Vikings and the Lions. The Lions, I believe, were undefeated for a while, or they had a good year. The Packers are always going to be good. And then the Bears have addressed it. Their offensive line, we're going to get to it. But my storylines for the NFC North is the Packers. Can we take back the North? The Vikings. Can JJ do it? Or do we need to put somebody else in here until then because we're in a win now situation?
Yeah.
I think Vikings fans got a little bit of win now from last year with Sam Darnold and how everything just went their way. And they're not in a situation to go, we're going to let a quarterback develop. It's kind of like the 49ers with Trey Lance. We're not in a situation to let a quarterback develop. And then, 2 or 3 years, you're getting traded for a 4th or a 5th round and you're a backup somewhere. So...
And throwing 53 passes in a preseason game.
Are they moving them? The Lions. How do the Lions keep moving forward and not move backwards? I believe they made the NFC division round last year. They didn't make the championship game. They got beat by the Commanders in the division that no one saw coming. But your team's going to get healthy. And can you stay healthy and make it to the Super Bowl? I mean, that's what they want to do. I don't believe the Lions have they ever made the Super Bowl? I feel like they have. I know they've never won one, I believe.
0 appearances, 0 wins.
Yeah. So can they make it to the Super Bowl is the storyline for the Lions. And then last but not least, they were least in the division, was the Bears.
The
Bears, what I'm going to be talking about is Caleb Williams' progression. Caleb Williams, it was like no secret. You got to fix the offensive line. Caleb Williams was sacked 3rd most all time last year, I believe, 68 sacks. Caleb Williams was sacked 68 times. Divide that by 18, and you're looking at roughly 4 times a game. So you got to figure it out, especially for a young quarterback. He's already going to have antsy feet. You got to figure it out, and they went and did it. They brought in some guys. They fixed the interior offensive line. They brought in Joe Hunley from Kansas City.
Joe Tooney.
Drew Tooney. Drew Dalman from Atlanta, and then Jonah Jackson from the Rams. I believe those 3 are kind of on the older end.
Yeah,
but
Joe Tooney's old. I don't know about the other 2. I think Jonah Jackson's in his 20s. And then you said, who's the other one? I forget.
Drew Dalman.
Drew Dalman. Yeah, he's old too. Or not, I don't think he's old.
But, I mean, you definitely don't got young guys that are on their first contract.
He's
they're
Drew
on their
Dalman's
second
26.
contracts. So you're addressing it a little bit. You can't, Caleb Williams fans, you can't hide behind the, he doesn't have a good offensive line now. He's probably going to have an average O-line. So good quarterbacks can take an average O-line to the playoffs. We've seen it time and time again.
Especially with that defense.
So you look at Caleb Williams' stats. He had 20 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Granted, that is a good touchdown to interception ratio. It's fairly good. But you got to have more than 20 touchdowns. If you're playing every single game, 18 games, that's only 1 touchdown roughly a game, and you're the starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm not going to lie.
But he did get another weapon,
I feel like I could go in the NFL and throw a touchdown a game if I'm in the right situation.
You're lying.
If I'm on the 2-yard line and I'm throwing to the weapons he's throwing to.
Respectfully, as someone who's seen Dak throw a football, he most definitely could not throw a touchdown a game. That's why I started over him at quarterback in intramural football. But
anyways, you got to have your wide receiver step up, though. You drafted Roman Dunze with the 19th overall pick last year. I believe it was 19th.
Don't forget about Luther Burden.
Yeah, that's
He's
going
to come in with a chip on his shoulder.
I know. I saw his little draft night tweet picture when he didn't get drafted in the first round. Anyways, you got to have those guys step up to help, and you got to progress, because if Caleb Williams doesn't progress, we're talking bust immediately. That's the story that we're talking. First overall pick. You got to do something, or the NFL is a business and it'll move on from you.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence was in a unique situation where I think it was year 3 he made the playoffs, but they were improving every single year. He needs to improve. You have a really, really, really good defense. You're in a division that's pretty darn hard, but I don't remember who they're playing for their AFC and their NFC, but if I
like the
believe
schedule.
it's not the. I believe, yeah. It's not the AFC South, so you played the AFC South last year. It's not the NFC West. You played the NFC West last year. So, depending on what your schedule is, you've got to go and win at least 8 or 9 games this year.
So this year they play the Steelers division.
Okay.
And
Browns, you should be able to beat the Browns.
The NFC, and they play the Saints.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
So
The Steelers division, the Saints. My brain. Oh no, they play the Steelers division, the Cowboys division. Then they play the Saints and the Raiders.
So, respectfully, you should be able to beat the Saints.
Probably.
You should have a good game with the Raiders. 2 teams that are up and coming. This should be a dogfight.
Should be fun.
You should be able to beat the Giants. If you have a good enough game, you should be able to beat the darn Cowboys. Because the Cowboys
You don't need
will
a
probably
good
beat
enough
themselves.
game. Dak Prescott. I don't even know if Dak Prescott's going to be healthy starting next season.
So you should be able to win 8 or 9 games. I want to see improvement from Caleb Williams, because you can't hide behind, my offensive line's bad. All right? You can't hide behind that anymore. That was the full excuse for his whole entire season last year, was his offensive line was bad. There were some questionable throws that he had that I'm like, what are you doing? Like running out of the pocket.
Playing like it's college.
There. Like, or running backwards and running back 15 yards and
Playing
trying to throw
hero
the football.
ball.
You can't
Yeah.
do that in the NFL. So I need to see progression from Caleb Williams, and that's my question here: is does Caleb Williams improve?
Yeah. I would say my question for you comes with the offense,
And the head coach. How much does the new head coach come in? And with the new head coach coming in, do you think Caleb Williams gets another season if he doesn't improve this year because he gets a full year under his belt with a new scheme?
I think he will probably get another season because he's a first overall pick.
Yeah.
No matter what, he gets another season. Granted, a new system. I think he's going to be able to learn it a little bit better than a system he's coming straight into.
Yeah.
The system. I think the system can be built around Caleb Williams versus Caleb Williams getting thrown into a system.
Yeah.
If the head coach does it right, if the system does it right, Caleb Williams can become the Caleb Williams we saw a little bit in college that I don't think was that good of a quarterback, if I'm being honest. Was never really too high on him. I always liked Jaden Daniels a little bit more than I liked Caleb Williams. But that being said, I think he gets another year. He at least gets to live out his contract.
Yeah.
As the starting quarterback.
I think Ben Johnson could have a big help with him. I mean, especially with how creative his offense was. And I think
he's from where's he? He's from the Lions, correct?
He's from the Lions, yeah.
Yeah. So
and
a
if
guy
he can,
is familiar
if
with
he
the
can
division.
work with Jared Goff, he can probably work with Caleb Williams.
I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah.
So, you have what, the NFC East next?
Yeah. So the last division we've got is the NFC East. So we have the
Whoa!
Eagles.
I haven't talked NFC West.
Okay, my last division is the NFC East.
There you
We've got the Eagles, Giants, Cowboys, and Commanders. So this storyline's out of the season. We got, will the Eagles offense take a step back after losing Kellen Moore in the offseason to the Saints? What are the Cowboys doing?
Do the Cowboys even know what they're doing?
Yeah. Did the Commanders improve enough? They added O-line, weapons, and brought back vets this offseason. And
they brought in Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Who's the starting quarterback for the Giants? So the focus, my focus is going to be on the Commanders, and the Commanders had a historic turnaround last season, going from 4-13 to 12-5. They got their QB of the future in Jaden Daniels, and they finally have a competent coaching staff that the players believe in. But did they improve enough this offseason to maintain or take the next step again, or keep that next step up? They got the better O-line with Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connerly. They added Deebo Samuel, and then they brought back defensive vets and added some in the draft. They brought in Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, who was a highly I think he's like 6 foot, 185. Was a pretty highly touted corner coming into the draft. So I'm excited to see what they do, especially with Mike Sanders still and Marshawn Lattimore, and now Trey Amos as well. So my question going into this season is, was it enough? Yeah, was it enough? Was it enough for the Commanders to stay in step and continue to take either number 2 in the NFC East or take over the NFC East? Did the Eagles fall down?
So I'm going to go out on a, I like to have bold takes here.
You have a lot
I'm
of
going
bold
to say
takes.
the Eagles and Commanders tie for first in the division, and they both go 12-5. Needless to say, I don't know who's gonna take it. I haven't went that far in depth yet of my brain power. My question is to you. I have a question into another question.
Oh,
Do you believe Terry McLaurin is a top 10 receiver in the league?
I gotta run through that in my head because I don't just want to say yes, but also I feel like he is. So, Justin Jefferson. So let's just run through it by division.
JJ, Jamar Chase, TD Lamb, DK.
In the AFC East,
the Bills don't have one. The Patriots don't have one. The Jets don't have one.
Tyreek.
Maybe Tyreek Hill. Probably Tyreek Hill. So then we've got the AFC South. Nico Collins, yes. So that's 2.
You think I'm taking Terry over Nico?
I'm not. After what Nico Collins did for my fantasy football season last year, I'm not taking him over.
Oh,
Especially,
biasy.
especially now that he's got a better offensive line in front of him. CJ Stroud's gonna have more
Fair.
time.
Fair.
So we got Nico Collins. Nobody on the Titans. The Colts probably not. Michael Pittman's
I'm not taking Pitt.
Yeah.
I'm not taking Pitt.
And then the Jags. Brian Thomas Jr. maybe.
I'm still not taking Brian Thomas over
Maybe.
Terry.
And then you got
He hasn't done it enough.
the AFC West. Lad McConkey probably not. Raiders don't have one. The Broncos don't have one, and then the Chiefs don't have one.
I'm not taking.
So yeah,
Any of those, yeah.
Terry McLaurin's probably the better top 10 receiver.
Okay. Do you think he can solidify himself as a top 10 receiver and get into the top 5 conversation in the league with the same quarterback for the next year? Because he's had a different quarterback every single year. It feels like for the Commanders, he's gonna have a guy that he's had all of last season in Jaden Daniels, and he put up so many better numbers than what he has been, and the dude ate all season last year. Do you think he solidifies himself as a top 10 receiver and, says, hey, I'm top 5 in the NFL because look what I'm doing in the past 2 years? My answer to that question, I'm going to go ahead and say he's already a top 10 receiver in the league, and I think he can get himself into that top 5 conversation just because of how old some of these receivers are getting. Like Cooper Kupp is getting a little bit older. Devontae Adams is getting a little bit older. D-Hop is old. So you're having some new young receivers come through. You got the JJ. You have Jamar Chase. I'm putting Terry McLaurin in that same 5 conversation in the league with Puka and guys like that. I just think Terry McLaurin has the capability of doing it. But it's not me to answer that question. It's for you to answer that question. Can Terry McLaurin be a top 10 receiver or a top 5 receiver in the league?
Yeah, so after taking like 2 minutes while you were talking to write down some receivers that I think are better than him,
I don't think he has a shot at top 5, but top 10, yes. Because just using a couple seconds and the internet, because my brain is fried, he's not going to be better than CeeDee Lamb, not better than Justin Jefferson, not better than Jamar Chase, not better than A.J. Brown, not better than Amon-Ra St. Brown, not better than Puka Nacua, not better than Mike Evans.
I think he can take Puka with another year. I think Puka's stats get a little bit inflated because of who his quarterback is. I feel like Matthew Stafford is a wide receiver 1 stat patter.
I can agree with that. But then you also have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Mike Evans, who Mike Evans still put up 1,000 yards after missing a couple games last season.
Yeah,
and has a Baker
that's
Mayfield
fair.
who's willing to just chuck it and doesn't
That's
give
fair.
a rat's butt about touchdown interception.
I will say he is a top 10 receiver. Terry McLaurin
Yeah,
is a top 10
he's top
receiver in
10.
the league.
But top 5, I don't think he has a shot. I would
I think
love
he can be top
it.
5 in yards and catches this year.
Yeah, I just
That's
don't
my
think
hot
he'd be
take. He's
considered
top
a
five
top
in the
5. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Now to a
Your
non-top
your
5
baby.
of
Yeah, now to your baby.
everything. The NFC West, my storylines is Sam Darnold the answer for the Seahawks, or are we rebuilding? 49ers, does Brock Purdy deserve the money? I'm going to already say yes, Brock Purdy deserves the money. How much longer is Matthew Stafford going to play for the Rams? And how long can he sustain this? And when are we drafting somebody else? And then the Cardinals, did we get better on offense? Obviously, I'm going to talk about the Niners because the deal still hasn't been done yet. Brock Purdy deserves his money. I think he's wanting $50 million a year. And if we're looking at the quarterback market, $50 million a year puts him at 10 or 11. And if we look at the top 10 quarterbacks, or the top 10 paid quarterbacks, only 2 of them have a Super Bowl appearance, and 1 of them has a Super Bowl win, and he just got it in Jalen Hurts. Joe Burrow has a Super Bowl appearance. Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl appearance. Patrick Mahomes, I believe, is 12 or 13. Obviously, he's probably going to move up when his deal gets restructured or something. But Brock Purdy's not a guy that's going to lose you games. And he has repeatedly done it where he's not losing a football game. Granted, he may not make all the throws in the world. He might make a questionable throw here and there. But most of the time, he's not throwing the pick. And he's going to make something out of nothing every 3 or 4 series. And he's a Super Bowl quarterback. He's played in the Super Bowl. Granted, there was some clock management issues with Shanahan. He was a possession away from winning a Super Bowl, and then he's in the top 10 and goes, "Hey, I have a Super Bowl ring. What are the rest of these quarterbacks at?" But if you look at the top 10 quarterbacks, like I mentioned, Dak Prescott is the highest paid quarterback. What is really, if we look into it, besides one year where he had to put up numbers because his defense was so bad, what has Dak Prescott really done for the Cowboys?
I mean,
with that question,
you're not going to argue with me. I've never been a Dak Prescott believer. So
Joe Burrow, okay, I'll give him that. Joe Burrow is
also a touchdown or a Super Bowl quarterback.
Josh Allen, he can't get through the Chiefs, but give him 2 or 3 years, and we're asking ourselves, is Josh Allen the problem that can't get through the Chiefs? That's an uncomfortable conversation that people might be having a few years from now if Joe Burrow can't get over the hump. Or not Josh Allen. Jordan Love is the 4th highest paid NFL quarterback. He's made it to the NFC Championship game, but guess who he lost to? Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Trevor Lawrence, the 5th highest paid quarterback. He's won one playoff game. And can't stay healthy. Last year, Brock Purdy missed a few games. The first time in his young career. He's been the quarterback for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Tua Tagovailoa. How many playoff games has he won? Maybe 2 or 3? He ain't made it to a Super
I
Bowl.
don't know if he's won that many.
Anytime he has to go in the colder weather, he sucks. Brock Purdy's done it. He's went to Lambeau and won a game, I believe. Jared Goff.
Tua's never won a playoff game. He's always lost in the wild card. So.
Okay, my point exactly. Jared Goff. Arguably, Jared Goff and Brock Purdy are the same type of player. Jared Goff a little bit more accurate, but his bad games are bad games. Brock Purdy's bad games, he might throw 2 interceptions and might throw 2 touchdowns. His ratio is even, I guess. Justin Herbert. I'm just going to say Justin Herbert because I think it's self-explanatory. Brock Purdy should deserve more money than Justin Herbert. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson deserves more money than the last 6 guys I just said. Jalen Hurts is 10, who just won a Super Bowl. I'm not going to argue with those 2 because I think those 2 should be higher than the 4 guys I just named in between there. But there's no reason in this quarterback market that Brock Purdy shouldn't be making the money he's wanting. Granted, the 49ers are looking for cap space and everything else, but you're letting guys walk and you're trying to get younger. No reason to not lock up your franchise quarterback for the next few years as the salary cap keeps moving up and moving up and moving up. Get the guy at $50 million that's going to move him to 12 or 13 in the quarterback, middle of the pack, next 4 years, and get younger, bring in a few pieces, and get back to the Super Bowl and next time win it. So my question is, not even a question, my statement is, Brock Purdy deserves his money.
So while you were talking about your team over there, I was doing some research, as I usually do when you're on your rants.
Because I remember the 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl quite vividly. Because the 2 times in my life that I have rooted for the 49ers, they've let me down and lost to the Chiefs. In 2019, 2020, Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew George Kittle wide open over the field to ice the game, in which I was very upset.
And he was your quarterback.
And then he was my quarterback, and I was very upset about that too. I couldn't stand him. And then we have the 49ers versus the Chiefs Part 2, where the result is the same. And the 49ers seem to drop the ball entirely after leading most of the game. Actually, they lead up until the end of the third quarter. No. Yeah, fourth quarter. So
there was a few picks that weren't picked, and a few holding calls that were just not called, that make the game a totally different game, as Nick Bosa's being held by the neck 2 times in a row, I believe, in the early fourth quarter. That then Trent Williams gets called for the same hold, pushes us back, I believe, in a series in that fourth quarter. But I look at that Super Bowl and I say, Brock Purdy probably could have done a little bit better, but he didn't put us in a situation to lose. Did he have an interception in that game?
Yep.
Or did
no,
he had
didn't.
one interception?
Did he? Hold on, let me double check.
I feel like he had one.
He did not. It was just one touchdown. He threw one touchdown, 255 yards.
And how many yards did Christian McCaffrey have?
80.
Yeah, I mean, that's a decent game for a running back.
Yeah. So my question is to you: do you think Brock Purdy actually deserves $50 million, or do you think he's going to get $50 million because of the market? Because I think
both.
You think both? Interesting.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, that was my question. That's all I had. Because after watching that game and seeing his stats from the last season, like, yeah, he had a great 23 season. But then going back to what you had said earlier about the 20 touchdowns in one season, he also threw 12 interceptions. Now, I don't watch 49ers games.
How many games did Brock Purdy play?
15, so he missed
12?
2 games.
I feel like he missed more than 2 games. He probably missed a bunch of halves and stuff like that.
He started 15 games, had a 6-9 record. Threw for 3,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Was sacked 31 times. Now, while I don't think that he's a bad quarterback, I don't know if he has the intangibles to be a $50 million a year quarterback because of the lack of ice in his veins. So do you think that he has the ability to take that next step with ice in his veins and ice games, because he didn't have it in the Super Bowl? He hasn't had it in his career so far. If he did that, I believe he would be worth that money. But right now, I don't think he is.
Let me ask you this question.
Oh, and
Matty
one other
Ice
thing.
Matty Ice, right?
One other thing.
Okay.
I also don't think that the 49ers would pay him $50 million, because if you look at it, like you mentioned, the quarterbacks who are making $50 million plus a year, they aren't worth $50 million plus a year. So why would the 49ers do that with already so much problems on their roster?
Because you need to lock up your franchise guy, and I believe he's the franchise guy. But also, I have 2 points from what you just said. Matty Ice was Matty Ice, right? Because he quote unquote had ice in his veins.
Mm-hmm.
Until who was the offensive coordinator?
That's a crapshoot of a question. I couldn't tell you.
Kyle Shanahan was his offensive coordinator. Matty Ice was no longer Matty Ice. It's a question that has struck me the past few years. Can Kyle Shanahan win the game when it matters, when he has the lead? Can he put the foot on the throat? And he's just not been able to do that. Now, that being said, the quarterback still has to go and make the play. And I don't think it's all on Brock Purdy entirely. But with how the quarterback market is, Brock Purdy deserves the money. Because of how the quarterback market is. And you throw any other quarterback in there right now, I don't know if Kirk Cousins can take the 49ers anywhere. Because of the simple fact, Kirk Cousins isn't mobile. Brock Purdy's a pretty mobile quarterback.
Yeah, he's more mobile than post Achilles torn Kirk Cousins, that's for sure.
But also, go look at the receivers that went down last year for the Niners. Your
All of
wide
them
receiver one
was
gone
Jawan
the whole
Jennings.
year. Yeah, Jawan Jennings. He's the wide receiver. He should be wide receiver 3 on that roster last year. His rookie receiver that the 49ers spent a first-round draft pick on was shot in the chest.
Yeah.
Could have died. George Kittle is going to be George Kittle. He just got his deal. I think he's going to have a great year next year. But you had a bunch of injuries that I think Brock Purdy made the best of what he had. I think we're going to get a 30-plus touchdown and probably around 12 interceptions, 12, 15. I like my quarterbacks to have a 2-to-1 TD to interception ratio. I think that's a good number to have because if you're scoring more than you're throwing the ball away, it's anytime that's good.
Yeah,
But
if you score more points, you win more games. So
Yeah. And with the defense of the Niners, it's just going to get better. They have a bend don't break mentality now on Robert Saleh. He's coming back.
yeah, I think he's going to be your biggest hope as a Niners fan.
Give Brock the money, and we're happy. But I believe that's all the divisions, correct?
Yeah, that's all the divisions we got.
Anything you want to throw out that you've heard?
Justin Tucker got released. Bum. Of course, I pull his card today from football cards, but
Don't touch people.
yeah,
It's
don't do stupid stuff.
what we have to learn.
Keep your hands to yourselves.
Next week, stay tuned because next week we're going to do our way too early over/under wins. I believe the NFL season will it get posted this coming week?
Yeah, the 14th. Well,
yeah.
so the 14th is it's Cinco de Mayo. The 14th is next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. So we won't have the full season playing out, but we do have who teams are playing, and we can do
Betting
some
sites
over-unders
have
from
placed
there.
the over-unders per team already.
So we're gonna look at over-unders for every team, and I'm an overs guy. So some teams have to be under, because if 16 teams are over, 16 teams have to be under. Right?
I mean,
Depending on how
probably.
the odds are.
Probably.
Depending on the odds are. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's a
But-
lot of math to be doing at 11 o'clock.
And what's our thing we say? We know
Oh, yeah, our
ball.
outro. Yeah, because I got tired of this because I thought that was cheesy and lame. So we'll see you guys next week. We hope you enjoyed this week. And at the end of the day, you have to remember the TD Podcast, here on the TD Podcast, we know ball, and that's why you tune in. Until next week, see you then.